Welcome to Search for Signs. My name is Gary Willing. If this information interests you, please press the like and subscribe button and press the bell for notifications. Well, good morning or afternoon or evening, but it is June the 9th, and I hope you're having a great day. All right. I have a couple questions to get into, and before I get into it, I do want to comment on something. But if you are like a couple of these people who want to ask me a question about Maitreya, the Masters of Wisdom, you can always post that question as a comment in the most recent video is the best thing to do, or you can email me directly at searchforsigns@mail.com. But what I wanted to talk about was a couple days ago, I was driving to the store in the evening time, and I was going down this street where I live, and there was a family. It looked like about 4 or 5 of them. These 2 cute little girls looked like they were in elementary school. They had their signs out there, and they're shaking their signs, and they're waving at cars. Cars are honking at them and stuff like this, And it was talking about peace and justice and Black Lives Matter and all that kind of stuff. And it was so inspiring to see these little kids out there doing that. I can't even get my daughter to go clean her room. So bad parenting on my part, I guess. But anyway, so then I went to the store, and the whole time I was at the store, I'm like going, how long has this been going on, right? I mean, I want to join these kids, right? So I drove back another way, and there was even a larger group at the corner of a busier intersection in the town that I live in. And there's probably 15 or 20 people of them out there with their signs and cars honking and stuff. I'm like, how long has this been going on in my town, right? I had no idea that this was going on. So when I got home, I put my stuff up, and I walked over to where that little family was, and they had already packed up their signs and left, and I was kind of disappointed about that. And then I walked all the way over to where the other group was, and they had left. And I was like, shoot. So yesterday, I was like, okay, now I'm going to take my car. I'm not just going to walk. So yesterday, I actually took my car up there and joined the group the larger group at the corner of Happy and Healthy, because there's a drugstore right there. Anyway, and got to know some of the people there and listen to what they were there for and all that kind of stuff, and just very inspiring. And got a chance to meet the gentleman who actually was one of the people that started this peaceful protest in my own town, and not throwing rocks through windows or anything like that, but he's very peaceful. In fact, he wants to stop it at 8 o'clock because he wants to be respectful to the businesses and the homes and stuff like that. I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. But this guy's like a bird on a wire, man. He went out there last week, and then more people joined. I joined eventually, So if you see something like this in your town, it might be going on in your town. Who knows? And you want to step out there and voice your voice as well. I definitely recommend doing it. It was fun. And when I asked these people why they were out there, they articulated it differently, but they want the same thing. They want justice. They want peace. Every one of them. And it was inspiring, and to be honest, it's what I've been wanting for so long, because the people need to wake up, and I think we are waking up to the injustices in the world, and the fact that we need to be the ones that voice our opinion, or our governments will never listen. They'll just go on doing what they're doing because that's what they do. And if you remember back right after, or right before the invasion in Iraq, there was like 11 million people in this country that marched against the Iraqi war. I mean, it was powerful, and how dismissive, how the arrogance of the Bush administration, but especially Cheney, just dismissed it. And he used the phrase, and to this day, it still burns me up. He called 11 million people marching against the Iraqi war a focus group. And that's what he thinks, and Dick Cheney's always, I don't think Dick Cheney views people as people. I think he views them as, commodities that he can use for his own personal gain, really, is that's the way I've always kind of viewed Dick Cheney, but he was right, because, and I hate to say it, and it burns me up to have to say that, is eventually, when people march, usually, and there was a wide gamut of people that were marching against the Iraqi war. You can't just pin it on one race or economic group, but it was just, they eventually lost interest, put their signs down, went back to working shopping, and it went right back to doing it. And the United States just wiped out nearly 1 million people in another country, and nobody said a word. Nobody said a word about that evil. I mean, it was just crazy. And, fast forward to today, are we going to do the same thing today where we just kind of go back to our own lives? It's a little bit easier, I think, for a lot of us to protest because a lot of us are out of work, it's a different world that we're living in. And I think that the 2020 is, like I said when it started, I think it's going to be the world that kicks off one of the greatest decades in human history. And it's been tough. It's been hard. It's not been easy. But I don't think the United States would have changed if things were easy. I think it's going to only change when things get harder. So just throwing it out there to you. All right, so a couple questions to cover. First one comes from Tao Zen Chi. Tao, I'm gonna tell you, man, you're my karma. You have a lot of posts, and I always try to make heads or tails of what you say, and I really can't figure out some of the stuff. I will say this. If you're quoting some of the biblical text about the sun rays, overtaking the earth and consuming the earth, the biblical texts about, fire and all that, brimstone, all that kind of stuff, and the biblical texts of the Buddhist texts of, the fire consuming the earth and so forth, they're all symbolic, man. I mean, it's not going to be this fire coming from the sun that's going to totally wipe out all the population on the planet. It's a spiritual fire that's going to change, and that's what we're seeing today. But it's, if you go back and read those verses that you're talking about from the perspective that it could be, just read it again, just as a possibility, that it's a spiritual fire that will consume the earth, then you might look at it differently. And that's what I think the writers were talking about. Now, in terms of I'm trying to remember the Qumran scrolls or the Dead Sea Scrolls, I think, because I actually had to look up what that word meant, man. You're a lot like BenjaminCreme's master. I have to look up some of the words that he puts in his articles. From what I understand, the Dead Sea Scrolls are authentic writings about Jesus' life, but they were still written down after Jesus passed away. So, as with the Bible, and people don't understand this about the Bible, or there's so many different interpretations of different, Bibles, really. I mean, you got the King James Version, the New American Version, or whatever, and there's all these different versions of the Bible. And that's with modern printing. Imagine what it was like hundreds or maybe thousands of years ago. But you had people that wrote stuff down, and then somebody might look at that and go, "No, I don't like the way that's read. I think he meant this," and "No, I didn't think he meant that at all," and and they probably threw a couple rocks at each other or whatever like that, and then changed it, took something out, added something in that they liked better, and blah 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 blah. And over the course of people doing that, and then writing it from Greek to Latin to back to Greek, back to Hebrew, there's this new language called, Old English. It wasn't called Old English, but English. Let's put it in there, German and this. It's gonna get distorted. I mean, it's human nature. I can't tell one simple instruction to my coworkers that I work with, and have it get back to me from what I said and have it be exactly how I said it. You know what I'm saying? So to think that it just remained in its purest state from when Jesus said what he said to the way we're reading it now it's just naive, but whatever. But yes, the Dead Sea Scrolls were authentic. And I've been trying to find this book. It's called the Essene, the Gospel of Truth. And a lot of it was written from the Dead Sea Scrolls and about Jesus' life, some of Jesus' teachings and so forth. And it's a wonderful read if you can find it. And unfortunately, I don't know who wrote it, but you probably can find it on Amazon. It's a very thin book too. It's not like reading Moby Dick or something like that. But it's a wonderful read. But one of the things that Jesus was talking about that I remember reading in this is he talked about. And it even says this in the Bible. Jesus said, "Physician, heal thyself." And Jesus was about people healing themselves more than him just healing them. And he encouraged people to fast and to fast for many weeks at a time if they got really sick. And it actually cured all sorts of ailments, some very serious that were life-threatening, like leprosy and so forth. But it would also, people had a lot of dysentery problems back then because they were drinking bad, unclean water, and they had parasites and stuff. And when they would fast, those things would, like the parasites, would leave the body and so forth. And then the person was healed. It was crazy. So he would encourage people to do that. And just for their own health and well-being too, just to fast, even if they weren't technically sick, but that's the way he encouraged it. But the one story in there that really stuck with me, and I've mentioned this a few times in some videos, but so I'll mention it again. Not everybody listens to all the videos, and I get it, right? But the disciples and Jesus were sitting on a hill, and there was a path that was leading to this town. And there was a guy walking, and this was early in the morning, I think, and this guy was walking with this bundle of sticks on his back and going into town. And Jesus leaned to Peter and said, by the time the sun sets, that man's going to be dead because of his karma. And I guess they didn't do much that day. They were still on that hill, and the sun had set, and here comes that guy going the different direction, right? And Peter looks and he goes, hey, isn't that the same guy? He didn't say it like that, and Jesus said, well, on the way to town, that same guy that was going to die saw a person on the side of the road that was thirsty and stopped and gave him some of his water. And by doing that, it mitigated his karma. And he said, go down there and open up that bundle of sticks, and you'll see what I'm talking about. You open up the sticks, and there was a poisonous serpent in there that was going to bite him, or should have bit him. But because he gave water to somebody that was thirsty, it actually saved himself, really. And the masters always say that service is the best way to burn off karma. We all have karma, negative karma just waiting there following us like a shadow, right? And the more you serve, the more you take care of your brothers and your sisters' needs and so forth like that, the more it mitigates our karma, So anyway, hope that helps, Tao. All right. The next question comes from Peter Miller. Does Maitreya know about advanced technology that might help humanity? Free and abundant energy, for example. Absolutely. And I'm going to read one of BenjaminCreme's master's article called The Blueprint of the Future. And he talks a little bit about this, Peter, but actually, it's not going to necessarily come from the masters, but from the Space Brothers themselves. Here's the thing. The Space Brothers have been in contact with the United States government and the military and some secret military installations, not from what the conspiracy theorists think, but have given a little bit of the technology that they have, not much, but just a little bit, some of the anti-gravity technology and so forth, to not only the United States, but also the Soviet Union back in the day, but the Russians now, right? And it's allowed our scientists to kind of come up with some new technology for ourselves. Most of it's military, unfortunately, because, we're a violent species. But anyway, once the masters come out, once the principle of sharing is starting to take root and justice is starting to reign and, around the world, people starting to feel a little more fulfilled, we're starting to take care of our environment. Peace is not only a possibility, but it's a reality, and our governments are now starting to be restructured in a way that just helps sustain peace and so forth. It's going to take some time. It's not going to be right away, but Maitreya, it will have already introduced the fact that the Space Brothers exist. But eventually, in the not so distant future, maybe my children's, maybe when my daughter's, my age or so, or maybe a little older, I guess, I don't know exactly when, the Space Brothers will start to give us the technology of light that they have. And so but they won't give it to us until they know for sure that we have put war in the rearview mirror forever, and we'll never, ever, ever go back to that, because this technology is pretty powerful. And in the wrong hands, especially if it was in somebody like Dick Cheney's hands, who would love to use it against another country, that kind of thing, it can be very deadly. and it can be not only deadly on that person, but also on the person who uses it. So it's quite powerful in its effect, but it's also powerful in terms of how it powers cities and so forth. So in the future, the Space Brothers will start to give us this technology. We'll start to implement it. It will start to power our cities free and clean. The way we travel will be silent and motionless, and not harm the environment and so forth like that. And millions of people will be able to move all over the world. In fact, one of Maitreya's priorities is I can't remember how it was exactly worded, but it's basically there won't be any passports or visas needed. People can the free exchange of peoples, I think is how we put it, is from one point of the planet to the other. So there'll be this mass migration of people visiting other countries and so forth. We'll all be able to, if you want to go visit Europe, you can just go right down to the station and you can go right to Europe, and you're there in just a few hours or minutes, maybe even, I guess, depending on how fast they can go. You'll feel better and more rested when you get there, so you don't have that vibration of, like we have in planes today where you go through turbulence, it just wears you down. Jokingly, there's a comedian, his name is Jim Gaffigan, he talks about when you fly from, New York to Europe, you get there, you're like, oh, I'm so tired. I need a day, So I was sitting there. I watched 2 movies. It was awful, It's that kind of thing. You won't have to have that proverbial day. You can just go there and get out and go enjoy, all what Europe has to offer, and then get back in and probably be home by supper time, that kind of thing. So there'll be this free exchanges of peoples all over the world will be going on. So, and then of course that technology, doctors will start to use, I think, a lot of the 3D printing, but they'll use it in terms of the technology of light. They'll be able to regenerate organs and those kind of things. And doctors in the future will have more of a sense of the person's karma. So if it's better for that person to stay sick, they'll advise against any kind of treatment and just let you go through the karma that you have to go through, because these masters and eventually all of us in the future will look at disease and death much differently than we do today. So the fear around death, the fear of pain, the fear of disease and so forth will have will be totally eradicated from the minds of humanity. And in the future, we'll have a much more spiritual look, spiritual view of disease and death. And sometimes it's better to let the person go through the disease than it is to try to cure them. And so right now our doctors don't have that kind of awareness. They're just trying to cure the body. And that's why a lot of times they cure the body and they do exactly what they do, and then it comes right back, So it's the karma of the person. It just delays that person learning what they need to learn. So that's all of us. So anyway, hope that helps. I think I answered all the questions. Yeah, anyway. So BenjaminCreme's master's article is entitled Blueprint of the Future, and it was written in October of 1999, so 20-something years ago. And I always have to say this because I always muck up at least one word. It's always like one word in his articles. It's always better for you to read it yourself. And if you do find these articles anywhere from mildly amusing to, truths and, see the wisdom in it that I do, I definitely recommend finding his books on Amazon. And it's Master Speaks is what I'm reading it from. Hopefully that helps. All right. The Blueprint of the Future. When men see Maitreya in full and open view, they will find much to admire. His grace and joy, his modest wisdom and all-inclusive love, his readiness to share all that he has and is with men of every station. His humility will astound. His knowledge, vast and deep beyond measuring, will reveal to men the paucity of their own. Thus will they turn to him for guidance, and sure of his concern, become again the students and earnest seekers they once were. Thus will it be, and thus will the great Lord present to men the blueprint of the future. The future holds for men such wonders that few today could comprehend them. Imagine then a future where no man lacks for aught, where the talents and creativity of all men demonstrate their divine origin, where war has no place in their thoughts, and where goodwill casts its benevolent net over the hearts and minds of all. Imagine cities of light, lit by light itself, nowhere to be found the squalor and deprivation of today. Imagine transport, fast and silent, powered by light alone, the far-off worlds and even the stars brought within our reach. Such a future awaits the men and women who have the courage to share. Such a future awaits the brave ones who love freedom. Such a glorious future awaits those who long to understand the meaning and purpose of life. Maitreya too awaits his opportunity to emerge and to begin openly his mission. He too grows impatient with the long wait. But the law rules all, and Maitreya abides lovingly by its wisdom. Nevertheless, the time is very near when the great Lord can emerge and speak directly to men. This being so, those whose task it is to prepare his way have but little time in which to do so. Make that then your first priority, leaving all else aside. As always, the free will of men may not be jeopardized. Thus it is that his name will not accompany his first appearances, allowing men themselves to ascertain his worth. As a man among men will he appear, voicing aloud his brother's needs and thoughts. In time, so many will respond that his true identity and stature can be confirmed. This time is expected to be short, but the pace of recognition lies in the hands of men themselves. The present phase of miracles now worldwide will continue and accompany this process until no one can deny its significance at this time. Thus the world will be won over and prepared for change. Thus the call will go out from the people of all the nations for the Avatar to speak, and thus will Maitreya answer that call and declare his mission and purpose. That silent declaration will announce the start of the new era of peace and sharing, justice and freedom, the awakening of men to their divinity, and the creation by men of a civilization wrought in the form of God's plan. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.